Now let's work on problem 6.2, which is a shaft support. Uh, and the units on this are going to be in millimeters. We're going to do this in Autodesk Inventor, of course. Going to split up our screen like so we can see this part and give ourselves a little space to work in over here. So starting off with a new part, we want to make sure that we select millimeters for the units. So metric, millimeters, create. And I think the best place to start, obviously, is the base. So this time, let's draw on this surface, which is going to be the XZ plane. And you can see that there's circles out here, one out here, then one out over in this direction also. And they're separated by a distance of 100 millimeters. So we can use a straight line to connect them. And then, of course, make that line a hidden line. Can set the dimension of that to be 100 and then rescale back down like so. And hopefully we could use the coincident tool to find the midpoint of this line. I'm not seeing it. Oh, there it is right there. We want to make this midpoint right there. And it looks like it probably already has the horizontal constraint that says that one's vertical. Let's make that line though horizontal. Looks like it already knew that as well. These are going to be separated by the same amount because we use the midpoint, and these diameters are 15. We'll make this right one 15 millimeters. It's amazing how close I got there. And then we can just use the equal tool for the equal constraint to make them the same size so that we only have the dimension on one side. All right, now we need this structure that goes all the way around it. And there's a couple of ways to pull this off. I guess we can just rough it out, first of all, with some lines. I guess I see one right here and another one right here. And then another one here and another one here. We're going to have some arcs that have their centers at this point. And then the radius of this outer one is 22. So let's go ahead and place our arc down in here, center point arc, like this. And we can start it out here and go like that, and then make sure that we dimension it to be 22. Amazing how close I got on that one. And looks like I forgot to close this last line. And again, we do this on the other side. If you feel more comfortable uh, going faster with perhaps making mirrors, then you can certainly do that. I was going to move forward with this approach, mostly because it talks about this a note that the 40 millimeter radius arc have the same center. So that's really kind of what I'm focusing on. And that kind of means that the center of that is going to be the midpoint here to me, but we will find out for sure. And this one, what did we say that one was? 22. And guess I'm going to assume that this arc starts here and goes out here somewhere, and that is going to be 44. So I wonder if I can type in 44 there. No. So radius, yeah, I'm getting pretty close on these numbers. You see, this is kind of a mess to begin with, but if you have a vision of where you're going, it's not going to be much a mess for very long. Because they have the same centers, that's where the constraint is. When I was looking at this initially, I couldn't see how we can determine the width of this across here. But then you look at the note and it becomes clear that it's probably going to be 80 millimeters from this side out to this side because you have 40 and 40. And I bet you saw this already that I made this one accidentally 44. Okay, now let's start piecing things together and making them tangent. So as you can imagine, we need to make sure that This is tangent with this one, but also it needs to be coincident with it as well. This one needs to be tangent. This one needs to be tangent, and so forth. And you're starting to see the thing take in a nice, beautiful shape there. Now all we got to do is connect the dots. Look at that. And then we go over here and just say we want this one to connect up to there and just keep going through the process. Now, how far do we want to extrude this after we get it done? Looks like it's going to be 16 or 18 millimeters. I'll take a closer look at that to make sure. So that's one way to achieve the bottom part, and we're going to extrude that. I think that says 18. I'm going to zoom in on it a little bit. Let me pause and see if I can get a close-up of that. Okay, and I've confirmed that that is 18 millimeters for the extrude. It seems to me that the best thing to do at this point, not sure what happened there. Oh, I have to select an area. 18 millimeters. The thing to do next would be to draw on the plane that is bisecting this. So not this one, not this one, but that one right there. That's one we want to draw on. And we can also maybe do a section view of that. Let's see if we got section view handy. We want to do half section view probably. And it's probably going to say, well, what plane do you want that on? So we want that one. Now we can see that we can kind of draw on that surface. Yeah, so we can draw that triangular shape and start with that and then extrude that both in and out. All right, so then we're going to say we like that section and we want to draw on this plane. So right click, new sketch on that plane, and just draw a happy little triangle. It's trying to lock into something here. I'm not sure what those are. Probably, oh, it's probably the circles or the arcs. I'm not sure which one. But we can just make this freeform. I should have made that top one horizontal, but no worries. We can do that right here. And then what we'll do is make those two vertical ones equal to each other. So as always, I like to have something that I can bisect on the bottom. So let's go ahead and close that one. You know what? I think we need to close it anyway to make an extruded shape. So that's good. And then what we need to do is have a vertical line going up through the middle. Get this back on the front. And I'm just going to go from here all the way up to about, I guess I could just lock into that position. And that would be one less unknown if I made this height the same as the height of this feature. This doesn't need to be part of it. It just needs to be the construction line. And we want the midpoint of this one to be on that line. Now, of course, I moved the line over, but you know how we did this before. I think what we did was we said vertical, and we said we want this one and this one to be vertical. Not really liking that. Let me try this again. This one, vertical. Okay, it's already vertical. I think what we want to do is actually select points. So on this tool, we select this point and that point. And you see it shifted it over now. So now we have something that's a good reference point for our y-axis. It's better to do these as hidden lines, in my opinion, because if you decide to move this part away from the origin, you can do so by removing the constraints on this part. Now, the width of this really needs to be the width of this whole circle. And to me, it looks like it's going to be 46 units. So like this, 46. And then the width of the bottom is from right there to right there. It's going to be 67. Now that doesn't look very symmetric. So what we can do then is say, let's make those equal to each other. This one here and there doesn't like that. So there's something that I have too many constraints on. Let's see if we can move this thing around. just up and down, right? Okay, so maybe we need to get the bottom base down here and make it a midpoint as well. That might clean things up. So this needs to be along the vertical as well. All right, so I clearly got too many constraints there. So what we want to do in those cases is just go ahead and show where your constraints are, and then try to figure out which one is really causing the problem. And to me, it looks like I accidentally clicked on the midpoint of something over here when I had this line, so that's locking it into position. We click on the red thing, the red constraint rather, and hit delete. And now we're most likely going to be able to make our changes. Let's try that again by going to the midpoint of this line and the midpoint right here. Everything's looking good. The height of this is going to have to be, I think that says 58. And let's see how many constraints we have left over. Yeah, it looks like I messed up something over here on this side when I did that process. So I'm going to hit Control Z a couple of times. Because it looks like I removed something on the bottom right there. I'm not really sure if that's the case or not. Did notice that it went off to the side when I did that. So just as a precaution to make sure that I didn't do that, I'm going to remove this one instead. Hit Control Z until that constraint is back, and then I'm just going to delete this one and not put it right there on that spot. Going back to the front face like this. Another way to do that, by the way, is if you're over like this, there is a tool called Look At. So if you go View right there, and you want to say Look At, where is that feature at? Let's see, I think it's this one. When you have it stretched out, it's a little bit easier to see which one it is. There it is, Look At. You go, what do you want to look at? I want to look at this sketch. So that's another way to do it. Depends on what, if you're on an easy plane, then that you want to use this. But if it's on a complex plane, Look At is going to be a better tool for that. So grabbing this one, also removing that one because of that weird looking constraint, we can make it so that it's obviously wrong. I guess maybe like that. And then close off our shape. It's all about those cases where you accidentally click on something that's a midpoint or the center of the circle. And then let's see if I can move this out just a little bit without causing any problems. Let's make sure we got enough constraints. If we click on this horizontal line, that should be connecting that bottom one. Let's make those two equal right there. See if that helps out a little bit. This is still 46. We need to get the height on that one to be 58. But it's hard to see the actual line that we use to connect the two. I don't think that that's it. Let's see if that is it. If I delete that one. Yeah. And can we move this one out? All right. When all this fails, go back and hit Control Z a couple of times until you can be sure about where you're at. And you can see it all started right here when I accidentally locked that one right into place. So then come back and make it not so obvious, not so locking into that position, but more like this. Then closing the circle, closing the shape rather. Trying the midpoint at this time again. But I think by this time, we've actually removed our symmetrical vertical reference. So just be patient with the process. If you make a mistake, just kind of casually come back and start making things right. Horizontal. And then we want to make the midpoint of this one on that line. And we want to make the midpoint of the bottom one. We can find it. There it is. Also on this line as well. It's looking a lot better. And then we go from bottom to top, making that 58. And then what else did we know? We knew that the top one needed to be distance of 46. And the bottom one needs to be a distance of 67. And now we need to make sure that this reference line is supposed to be a bisector is actually lined up with the y-axis. So the way you might remember we achieved that was we said, let's select something that's vertical and select one point and then the origin. That lines everything up, and we now have a fully defined part. After all that work, right? So then we can see that it's time to make that extrude and then make the pipe or tube that goes through that area. I think at this point, we can go over here and go to the view and remove the half section. So just back to delete that section view, and then go ahead and extrude your shape in both directions. It's important that we do that because it needs to be centered. Now the width of this looks to be 18. So if we do 18 in both directions, that means it's going to go 9 this way and 9 that way. So sometimes we think that it's going to go 18 on each side, but this turns out to be in the middle like so. All right, is that it? Looks like it. I mean, I guess the next thing to do is to get on that plane again and then draw these two circles, make one extrude and one cut, and we're probably there. That's pretty easy, I guess, right? All right, so let's get on that plane again that we were drawing on to begin with. That was this plane. Right click and then say new sketch. And you can either trust the process that you're actually drawing on the middle plane or on the YZ plane, or you can make that section view as we did before. I'm going to trust that it realizes that I'm actually not drawing on this surface, but in the middle of it. And you'll see what I mean. So that one's 46, and then the middle one needs to be 30 on the diameter. So I'm going to click here, and then I'm going to not click a second time. I'm just going to type 30 and then enter. To convince you that, and convince myself that this is indeed drawing on the YZ plane and not on the surface, we can take a different view, and you can see that I was spot on there. So then we can go and do our extrude, and it's going to be a distance, forward and back, a total of 40. So 40 like this. Make sure it says extrude, make sure it's both ways. Then select the shape. Now it looks like the hard part here is that I can't really see the bottom of it, but it looks like it's going to let me click on it anyway. That's not so bad. And then what we want to do is say that's not the only thing we want to do before we finish. We really want to use that same sketch for two different things. One is for the extrude, then you say plus, and you also want to do the other one right in here, and you want to say cut. And you want to go through all, or just say both directions like this, and look at that. Beautiful part. And it looks like I rotated it 90 degrees, but that's okay. All right, we can pull the dimensions forward again as if you want to, before you submit that to kind of check to make sure all of these are correct. All right, we have a fully defined part, and maybe even give it a little bit of change in the view of it just for fun. We can manage, or is it the environment? Inspect, appearance. Okay. So I think one of the things we can do is actually do, let's try to find the one that has, oh, there it is, visual style. So I want to kind of remove some of these edges and make it just more realistic, like so. It softens the edges a bit, and we can do like we normally do, and that's just change the properties to something we would expect a shaft support to be in. Certainly not plastic if we want it to be proper. Maybe something like steel or maybe carbon steel, mild steel might be good. And then go ahead and update that, apply it. You can see it's got this shiny surface now. Looks pretty realistic. That might be a good state for us to save it in. It also leaves a product that you can, scan a picture of and show to your client to show them what it's going to look like before you do it. And you might even convince them that it's going to need some fillets here on the edge, so it's going to be less likely to cut into anything, whether it be, a person, making it uncomfortable for a person to hold, or maybe even the ability to get that tube in here might need a chamfer on that surface. So making a part that your client can visualize is going to be helpful in industry. All right, now let's go on to the next one. So I'll see you in the next video.